evening, everyone, and welcome to the Slay to Success Talk Show. I am your host, Rochelle Slay Queen Hemingway, CEO and founder of Slay to Success. What is Slay to Success? It is a business where I am advising and empowering women professionals, especially women veterans, on hyper focusing on appearance, behaviors, communication skills, and digital presence so that way they can attain a lucrative opportunities. So tonight, y'all, on this show, we talk about men and women who are living life on their own terms and they're using the slave philosophies to do it. And what does slave mean? By this time, I probably should see that in the comments because you know how we do, y'all. Slay means to kill it, to dominate it, and to nail it, to be on point, to impress greatly, and to dream big and work hard until you own it. It is also an acronym which stands for Universal Life and Leadership Philosophies that really resonate with me. And I love to share with other people as how we can do our best lives in this chaotic world that we are living in right now. S, stay ready to be ready. L, lead out loud. A sense of community, a sense of family. And Y, you are built to last. So if you are here tonight, please make sure that you put it into the comments so we can see. And I see Mosaic Sparks is here. Thank you so much for being here tonight with us. I know the CEO and founder of Mosaic Sparks is Leslie George. So thank you so much because I was on her show, y'all. So if you want to see another interview, go to her YouTube channel, okay? Because we just did that yesterday. So thank you so much for being here tonight with us. And as you all come in, please make sure that you tell us where you're streaming in from, your name and so forth, so I can give you a shout out. So tonight, y'all, we're in for a special treat. I have a amazing guest tonight. And we're going to have a slay amazing conversation. So tonight, y'all, I have Miss Alison Jones. She is an industrial psychologist. She's a leadership transformation strategist and a best-selling author. After leaving the corporate world, she founded Wellness Societies LLC to help leaders to become dream bosses and create dream workplaces. She's also the founder of Glow, which is a bi-weekly online women's leadership group. Through her coaching, consulting, speaking, and writing, Alison has been helping others slay, okay, y'all, in leadership and life for over 30 years, okay? And so I am super, super excited to bring her on stage. Please, 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 a warm welcome for my friend, Alison.
Hey, Rochelle.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well.
I love your energy. I love it.
And on a Sunday night, 7 p.m., and this is a holiday weekend too.
Yeah.
So, people are out. Yeah, I'm very brave. I'm like, we're going to have a show tonight. Okay. And I'm going to bring on a special person that I've met through another we had another wellness group that we're a part of for the Business Women's Network of Howard County. And when you were sharing what you did, I was like, she has to come on the show. She has to come on the show because we're in we are so much in alignment. And so y'all, please work with us because Alison's got a little bit of, in fluctuation for the Wi-Fi and, laptop stuff, but that's not going to stop us from having this conversation. Okay. And so Mosaic Spark says, yes, we had a great conversation. Yes, that was from yesterday. Okay, Alison. So how you doing today? What's going on?
Other than the tech issues, I'm doing great. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you okay. It's going to be a little bit, but we're going to work with it, right?
We are going to work with it. Got to work through the challenges.
Yeah, we do because we're not stopping. We're very high performing, ambitious women that are going to work through any challenge that comes our way. So y'all just bear with us as we go through this. But can you please share with the audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, kind of what your background, you had corporate world experience for a long time. And so kind of share with us, what that looked like and why you decided to do what you're doing right now.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, thank you so much for having me, Rochelle. I want to just say to you that it's amazing that you've created this space and this forum where you're putting so much value out there. And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes just so much commitment. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it this evening and just for putting so much
Absolutely.
valuable content out there that I know people are just eating up. So
Yes. Well, thank you. I
that's
appreciate you.
awesome. So, yeah, so again, my name is Alison Jones. I'm a leadership transformation strategist. And basically, what that means is that I help cultivate healthy leadership from the inside out to create thriving workplace cultures. In my bio, we talked about creating dream bosses that create that dream workplace culture. And I truly believe that leaders have to be healthy inside and out if they're going to lead effectively, and we can get into that as we talk. So I really come from a place of holistic wellness for leaders. It's leadership skills, but it's also let's make sure that you have a sound and a well mind, body, spirit, so that you can lead from that place. I did work for 30 years in the corporate world. Started with the Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Prisons for 3 years. And then I entered the consulting world for a small consulting company. Did the worked mostly for federal clients, primarily the federal judiciary. So that was really interesting because I got to work with a lot of high level, including presidential appointee types of people and federal judges, et cetera. So I got a lot of perspective on leadership, I guess you could say, from working with them for so many years. And last year, I started my own business. I left my corporate career and I started Wellness Society LLC so that I could work more targeted with that whole focus of that well-rounded leadership.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's sort of a little bit about me on the professional side. You want me to talk a little bit personal? Okay,
Yes, please.
great. So personally, we'll always start with the fact that you're a mom, right? We always
Yeah.
start with giving a shout out to our kids.
Yeah, we do. They
Yeah.
make sure that we know that they got us.
Oh
I-
yeah.
It's
Oh
just,
yeah. I just had the video call with one of them this afternoon. I just moved him and my youngest into University of South Carolina 2 weeks ago. So we're still doing the weekly or more than once a week video calls. So we had one of those today. So I have three boys, young men, I should say, 25, 23, and 18 now at South Carolina, and a dog, Chloe. And I love reading. My primary love is historical fiction. Don't know how many of your listeners, I bet there's quite a few that love historical fiction.
yes.
Oh, so wonderful. I love live music. I have a fascination and love for elephants. That's something that I'm very passionate about. And I will just also say that although I love my life and I'm full of joy and I have a great life, I've had also a lot of loss and a lot of tough things to have to work through in life. And it
Mm-hmm.
never ends. Of course, we're on a journey, but there's been a lot of mess. There's been a lot of things, a lot of pain, and maybe we'll touch on some of that. But it's
Yeah.
all folds together and weaves together that story to bring you where you are. So
Yeah.
happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this is going to be a really great conversation, because as you were saying, corporate world, and then going, creating your own business, and all the ups and downs and in betweens that happens along in our journey. So,
Mm,
okay, so because we have so much to share and so much to talk about, let's first just talk specifically about leadership.
yeah.
So, both you and I have had multiple um, iterations, if you will, on leading, different groups, different teams, different organizations over, 3 decades. And you were in the judiciary system, and the military is similar to that. I mean, there's a lot of rules and the conformity and so forth and so on. So, as a woman in this type of environment, like, what was your leadership style? Like, how did you figure out how to navigate that?
I love that question, and nobody has ever asked it before. I
Yes.
love that question. And I see someone says she loves elephants as well. We love that
Yes.
too. Sorry. So the question is so great because the immediate thing that just automatically comes to mind, and this is exactly what I did in any situation, was it was always about relationships. I
Yes.
always looked at every interaction that I was in, whether it was with federal judges, other presidential appointees that I was working with, clerks, someone just opening the elevator for me, whoever it was, from very quote unquote low level to all the way to the very top. It was never transactional, always about a relationship and always about treating them as people. Because here's something interesting I learned from working with some of these very high level individuals. First of all, many of them are just cream of the crop. They're there for a reason. They're really amazing people. The other thing is, regardless, they're people and they
Hmm.
have families that they're going home to, and they have favorite restaurants to go to, and they have the need for the water break, and all these things. And when we treat them as if they matter as people before their job, it's
Yeah.
just amazing how the barriers just break down and it doesn't matter male, female. And you're right, it's a very male dominated type of industry and it's very hierarchical. But if you come in intimidated or if you come in trying to force yourself too much, it just doesn't work. You really need to come in just authentically you and show interest in them. So,
Hmm.
for example, I would facilitate sessions when I would go out on site all over the country. And I would always try to get to know them a little bit at the beginning. I would talk about, if they had restaurant recommendations where we could go that evening, the team that was there, just trying to find out, a little bit about them, kind of talking about their courthouse that they were in because they were usually very proud of the beautiful courthouse that they worked in, and they were usually beautiful public buildings. So just asking them some questions about the space, they love talking about that, broke down all barriers. So I really think it's about building the relationship and just being authentically you.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
love that because that is so important. It was one of the lessons that I had to learn. Um, as you get mature, into your career, sometimes you're not really paying attention to what is working and what is not working. And when I realized that, creating a relationship or just having a normal conversation, um, it was the key to unlocking so many opportunities that were there that they were like, oh, you know what? I met so and so and they like this. And actually, when you get to know someone and you're in a open forum, that something happens when everyone kind of knows, the person. They're more open, right? They're more apt to share. And so I absolutely love that you navigated the space. I did the same thing.
Mhm.
When I was in my military career, it was always about relationships. How can I nurture it? How can I know more? How can I get to the root cause of what was going on? And so sometimes, I don't know if this happens for you, Allison, but sometimes people just tell me stuff, total strangers will come up to me and just talk to me about whatever. And I'm like, wait a minute. But I think because, the openness and the aura that you present, like, speak to me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they know that they can trust you. If
Yeah.
you did not come across in an auth in a and I'm not saying inauthentic. If you didn't come across authentically, let's just go with that,
Yeah.
then they would not. Because no matter how much you might be trying to be relational, if you're just doing it as a means to an end,
Yeah.
that is very, very clear. But when you really are developing trust and when you genuinely want to take the time to get to know people and, like you said, to find out what you can learn and understanding that everyone has something to offer, then
Yes.
you develop that trust. I used to have some clerks that I was told that I'll never be able to break through. They're just too difficult. And I always said, let's just wait. Everything's going to be fine. And it always was. And I ended up having wonderful relationships. There wasn't one that honestly was a problem because again, people are people. And
Yeah.
even if they get a little prickly, you could say at times, I looked at it as they're just trying to do their job and do it well. So let's just have a conversation and let's see what we can do to get them what they need.
Yeah. So I like that too.
Mhm.
Because you can break those people or not. I want to say break, but you can get to them. You can actually connect with them.
Yeah.
And people sometimes don't try because of what they've heard. I stopped judging books by its cover, if you will. I just wanted to find out for myself and not just go off of what everyone else was saying.
That's another great point. You know, you hear, oh, you'll never be able to break through that person, or they're so this, they're so that. And that's one person's interpretation or multiple people's interpretation based on their perception of and their interaction with. That
Yeah.
does not necessarily mean that that is going to be your experience with that person. So we would want people to give us the benefit of the doubt and to take things at face value with us and get to know us. And in the same way, we need to be able to do that when we get to know other people.
Yeah, agreed. So, authenticity or authentic ness, I don't even know, authenticity, there's so
Yeah,
many different versions of it. It's really a buzzword, if you will, for today's world. What would you say your definition of authenticity is?
that's another wonderful question. I really believe that authenticity is showing up as your true self, which includes things like your values, your
Mhm.
personality, really bringing that essence of who you are. I think wrapped up in authenticity, we have some other things though. We also have things like integrity, because if you're
Mm.
being authentic, then you will be filled with integrity. How can you be authentic without having that integrity piece in there? But I do think it is showing up as who you are and also allowing others, providing them the space to do the same. And when you are authentically you, which doesn't mean that we can get away with always, if we have some rough edges that need to be smooth, it doesn't mean that we get a pass because this is just the way I am.
Right.
I'm going to be horrible before my coffee. It doesn't mean that we have a pass
Yeah.
and that behavior, but when we bring our essence of who we are, and I think it really comes into play when we're in situations where we might be needing to make some kind of an ethical decision in how we're going to respond,
Yeah.
from something as seemingly minor as maybe advocating for somebody who
Mhm.
needs a voice. If we are authentic and if our value is for justice and compassion, are we going to exercise authenticity at that moment and advocate for somebody? And of course,
Right.
ranging to something larger, like a larger ethical stand that we need to take. But really, not disowning part of yourself where you talked about the being a woman in the military, and I'm sure you could talk for hours and hours and hours, weeks, months, years, on how you had to just retain your essence of who you were and be a part of that industry, and yet retain whatever was authentically feminine to you and what
Yeah.
was ever authentically Rochelle to you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's not to say that I didn't lose some of my identity within the uniform. I realized at some point that I was not being true to me, and it was actually I wasn't feeling good.
Mm.
I wasn't feeling right. You know what I mean? Like I would go in and I would try to talk like someone else, or I would try to emulate somebody else's behavior, and it just was not working. And I just had to stop because I just looked at myself in the mirror one day and it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So almost like disowning myself. So it took me quite a bit to get back to her. But once I did, everything else, even through the midst of some craziness, I mean, I've had some situations that have happened, but then you actually show up in that and you're like, you know what? Rochelle or Allison showed up today. So
I think that's such a great point. And if I can just follow up on that briefly,
Yeah.
I think, for your listeners out there who might be feeling unease, some kind of stirring, just discomfort with life and maybe with the roles they're playing, I think a good question to ask is, am I being authentic to myself? Because I think
Mm,
sometimes that little voice inside of us, or that little thing that stirs inside of us, is that warning sign to say, this is not who you are. You're
yeah.
playing this role, you're doing these things maybe for somebody else, really not for you. You're staying in this situation, maybe for somebody else, but not for you.
Yeah.
You're getting involved in this activity, maybe because you think it's what you should do, but it's not authentically you. Maybe instead of doing pottery, you should be riding horses, maybe that's
Exactly.
authentically you. So really being able to know yourself and to tap into, what are my strengths? And what are things that I really have no interest in doing? I think that's powerful. So listen to that little voice that says, just, I'm not settled here.
Yeah. I know that, some of our listeners, absolutely it's resonating with them. So, you know, when we get back to our authentic selves and we really know really what we're going to be doing and how we want to show up, it's really about how we want to show up in this world as a leader, maybe as a woman in a leadership role. I found that the journey for me was quite interesting because, you know, throughout this, the wellness, it has to be like the priority, right? And I found myself in certain situations where, like I said, I was not feeling right. And I had to get back to self care and really figuring out what that meant for me. And so I see that you created your business called Wellness Society. So, what is the storyline, if you will, as to how you got to Wellness Society?
Yeah, that's a great question again. You've got some fantastic questions, Rochelle, I will say.
Yeah, I've been trying, like I'm
Yeah.
practicing up in here, y'all.
Oh, it's so you're so insightful.
Yeah.
So my background again is in industrial organizational psychology. That's my master's degree, and I have many years in the corporate world of working in leadership, working in strategic planning, and all the things. I also am very passionate about wellness, and I have multiple certifications in group fitness instruction, certified personal training. I'm a certified health and wellness coach, and I'm extremely passionate about personal wellness. And to me, there's that intersection between leadership and wellness, because it's really all about self leadership. How are we leading ourselves? Because again, if we're expecting others to follow us as leaders, and again, it's not necessarily in an organization. Not everyone is going to have an official leadership role in an organization, but we're all leaders in life. We're leaders in our homes, we're leaders in the community. Many parents are leaders in schools. We're leaders in how we show up with other
Mhm.
people. So how are we going to lead ourselves first and foremost if we expect other people to be impacted positively by us, which to me is really what leadership is about? It's
Yeah.
about having that influence for good. Then we've got to take care of ourselves, not only for the stamina and the energy and the positivity and all those things, but because, first of all, the example that we're setting for others, that self-care is very important, but also because our mindset and so wellness is physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and social. And if you think about it like a rolling wheel, if one of those is way off, that
Mhm.
wheel isn't going to roll smoothly.
Yeah.
So we can't, there's all sorts of physical things associated with wellness that certainly impact leadership. If you're not taking care of yourself in the area of stress and sleep, that's absolutely going to have a very clear effect. But what about where you are in your spirit? What about your
Mm.
social life? Not
Yeah.
just relationships, but your relationship with society and your social interests, your
Mhm.
intellect, the things that you're doing to grow, not just in your content area of your business, but as a person, that self-development, that personal development, that growth. The emotional, we talk a lot nowadays in organizations about emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Well, it is extremely important to be able to be aware and self-regulating and to have these social skills. So to me, it's that intersection and society, wellness society. We want to be a society that's well.
Mhm.
And it's that very, corporate to me, it blends the wellness with the corporate wellness society. So it's really been exciting to start it up and to be now getting my messages out there, including in my book. And it's interesting because you talked about authenticity. I have a chapter in my book, and you do not know this about authenticity. So we are on the same wavelength. Love
Of
that.
course. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just saying, I think that many of us that are in this space, there are some very similar topics that we
Yeah.
message a lot.
Mm,
And when you talk about authenticity, you talked about the 8 dimensions of wellness. I talk about that as well. And you talk about how, we as a society need to, prioritize, because there are a lot of things that people misunderstand about a leader because the leader is not doing well. And
mm,
so, I've seen it time and time again, when leaders that I have worked with who are just not really taking care of themselves, and the response that happens from the followers, if you will, the
yeah.
colleagues, and everybody's wondering what's going on, what's happening. And like you said, one of those areas is off just a little bit, and they may need to pay attention to a particular area.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this wellness and in the corporate space, and then bringing it to them, and really sharing with them the holistic approach to how you can be a leader, and it starts with them, or starts with us.
Yeah.
And so, was there a particular incident, situation that occurred for you that allowed you to see this dynamic, this important dynamic? And so you chose, because that's usually what happens. We
Mm.
are our own avatars, if you will, right? So something particularly happens, and then you're like, well, you know what? Let me set course on it, and now let me help to empower and inspire others.
So I don't think you're aware of my backstory, but
No.
absolutely, for me, it's been a journey. It wasn't maybe a defining moment that occurred all at once, but a journey over many, many years. And then finally, the pieces of the puzzle start to fit together. So, just a little bit about my story. And I'm sure many people have experienced a lot of loss in life, and some people will be able to relate to my specific loss, but whether it's this or something else, there are things that we all have to work through and grow through the pain of life. And for me, it was around the area of addiction. So I lost two sisters. I had three sisters, and I lost two sisters to addiction, drug and
Mm.
alcohol addiction. One of them when she was 29 years old, and one of them when she was 49 years old. And it was a
Wow.
30-year from the very beginning with my first sister to her death. That was about 30 years. And then the other sister fell within that time. And that's a very painful thing to go through. Anyone who loves someone who is an addict of any kind knows how painful that is to go through. And you start to, if you're not careful, and if you don't take care of yourself, it really does start to affect you inside. You start to feel like life has spun out of control because you cannot control the addiction. You cannot control the other person and their choices, and you really can't understand why anybody would continue to cycle that way. And obviously, it's the nature of addiction, and it's very, very sad. So I started to feel like my life had sort of spun out of control. I ended up going through divorce, which is another situation that can make you feel like your life is spinning out of control. Was losing my father to Alzheimer's, which is another thing that's just very difficult. And through all of this, I just started to realize that I needed to do what I could do to, first of all, help others and put out positive messages out there, but also to have some frameworks where I could turn all of this mess and all of this feeling out of control into something that now I can rewrite my story. There's a narrative. I don't have to allow this to dictate the rest of my life. I am not just someone who lost two sisters to addiction and is divorced. I am someone who is creating this beautiful new life out of this mess. So I just sat with things for years, and I'm a frameworks person. I need kind of like frameworks to guide me.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
develop some frameworks in my own mind that I would apply to myself to start to gain back some of my confidence and some of my courage. Because I can tell you, going through all this, you start to feel very small. You start to feel very
Mm.
insignificant, and like happy life wasn't meant for you. It's just meant for the other
Mm.
people. And you're just meant to just kind of get by and take whatever scraps are given to you. And it's a terrible way to live and to think that way, but there's something about when you are going through so many things that make you feel like you don't have a sense of control. So I started to just apply things to myself, and I started to just see my mindset completely change. And I'm also someone with a deep faith, and that's also an important part of my journey, absolutely. But it's really that for me, I had to find that purpose from the pain. I had to turn
Mhm.
all of that and not let it be for nothing. And I also know the difference that if my sisters had been able to find a sense of real self leadership, and if they had been able to be well in all those areas we talked about, the
Mhm.
difference, they'd still be here, most likely. So yeah, it does come down to that personal journey and that struggle that I would have never wished on anyone, because it
Yeah.
was very, very painful. But when beautiful things come from it, then you start to see the tapestry weaving together, and then you make the most and you try to make it as beautiful as you can.
Yeah. Well, first of all, my condolences to you and your family for your
Thank you.
loss. And I'm also very inspired by your share because, a lot of people won't share the story as
Mhm.
to why they've gotten to where. And when you say own your narrative, I firmly believe that all of us have a narrative that we need to share and for anything else to know that you're not alone. You're not alone in the journey. And when you just share that you felt small, you felt insignificant, you didn't think that your life really mattered in the grand scheme of things, and you were able to create a framework for yourself and to pull yourself out of that, because you could have easily withdrawn and just stayed in that space, but you decided, based on the leadership experiences that you've had, that it was time for you to kind of help yourself, So that's what the self leadership is really about, is having an understanding of where we're at and drawing from the experiences and the expertise that we have to help our own selves before we start helping other people.
Yeah.
So I really love that you shared that. And I know that's going to help someone who's listening to this conversation because it's very powerful. And you also talk about turning pain into purpose.
Mhm.
So I also have the reason why I created Slate to Success was almost it's not similar to the loss of your sisters, but I had a loss of my airman. And so his favorite word was slay. So I took his word and I started to use it as a means to bridge a gap between me and the younger, airmen at the time that I was leading. And it created a shift. It actually uh, in the moment, I didn't really notice it until someone came up to me and said, what you are doing is absolutely incredible. Like, people were hurting. I was hurting, so being able to pick up on things that we can use throughout our journey to carry us to where we're at is something that we all need to at any point you can do this. And I think that's the key. Like, this is a journey, and at any point we can shift. And when you talk about shifting your mindset and how you had the ability to do that. Like, the mind is so interesting. It is definitely one of those, and I want to say it's like, an anomaly. Like, it's just out there and you don't really understand it to its full capacity,
Mm,
but you can see it being demonstrated in so many different ways. Like, you can go out and you could see someone like having a low story and not being able to do something like walking or talking, and then all of a sudden, they created a way for them to start to do that. And then their mindset, instead of looking at themselves as being disabled, they have looked at themselves as having a special ability. So when our minds are going through a certain, just the way that life happens, and sometimes we get very down on ourselves and we think very negative about the world, because you could turn on the TV now and you just be like, ah. So, how do you take care of your mind?
yeah. Oh, I think and everything you said is so true about the mind and about how we start to find what we're looking for. So if
Mm,
we start to have a negative cast in our mind over everything, we're going to see negative. It's kind of
yeah,
like if you are looking for negative news, we can give it to you. If you're looking for positive news, well, we can find that.
yeah,
But when you start to see all the negativity out there when you have that negative cast, and we start to find evidence to support the beliefs that we have about ourselves, others, in the world, but and we don't, it's most of it going on at the subconscious. We don't realize we have it's kind of like if you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see all that same car on the road. Well, that's
yeah,
because now your brain subconsciously is seeing those cars. They were always there before, but you're noticing them now. So I believe that the mind is powerful, as you said, and
mm,
mindset is huge. You see it in sports, you see it in business, you see it everywhere. Mindset is huge. And I think that we have to be so intentional about what we're doing with our mind, about feeding our mind with positivity, with things that are going to stretch us and challenge us. We have so many opportunities, whether we're driving in the car or we're just, cleaning the kitchen. We can be filling our mind. I'm not saying there's not time to just decompress and have no music on, no audible books on. Absolutely, we all need our break, but we do have times that instead of maybe spending an hour doing something like watching a Netflix show, could we be listening to that audible book that's going to encourage us and motivate us? I absolutely believe that we are the average of the people we spend the most time with. And I
oh
think,
yeah,
yeah, and what's so great about that is that includes authors and people that we might have never met, but we consider to be fantastic mentors. Guys like Jim Rohn, you watch some of his videos,
oh yeah,
yeah,
you get
you
excited.
can't not be inspired.
Yeah,
Imagine just having him feeding your mind daily. So I think it's just so important that we stay connected to people who are going to challenge us intellectually, challenge us spiritually, emotionally, socially, physically, and that we in turn can be that for other people. But I do think it's intentional. I think that if we are passive and if we are consumers of everything that's being brought into our social media feeds, the
mm-hmm.
media, whatever Netflix is throwing our way, and believe me, I'm a fan of Netflix,
Me
right?
too.
Right. But let's be intentional and let's have things in the right sort of amounts of allocated time, and let's make sure that we are feeding our minds with things that are going to help us to grow. And it's also vitally important that we stretch ourselves outside of our comfort zone, because that's the hugest part of mindset, is growing through that adversity and through that challenge. You cannot do it
Yeah.
without pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, yeah. And I think we're perfect examples of that
Yes.
because when, again, corporate world, military world, doing something for so long. And then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, business owner? Okay.
It is not for the faint of heart.
I just like, what am I doing? I feel so out of it. I don't know. Some days I feel like I'm on a different island and, you're networking and you don't know nobody that's in there and you're just
Yeah.
trying to just figure out what does business acumen, what is this all about?
Yeah, you're wearing so many different hats, and it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And it actually reminded me of your why about
Oh,
that
yes.
why you are
Oh,
built to last.
oh,
And you cannot do entrepreneurship without that why, right? It's that persistence, it's that determination, that dedication, that resilience, right? Because
yeah,
not everything is going to happen the way that you think it should. And you have to learn from quote unquote failure. You have to learn from the things that you wish you could have done better or differently.
yeah,
And without taking those and internalizing them, and again, the mindset, you have to protect your mindset so that you don't internalize them and throw in the towel.
yeah.
It's very rewarding. It's so rewarding, but especially when you're launching a new business, you've just got to make a decision that I am here for the duration. Because if you give in to the feelings of the moment, not good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Believe me, I've been very close to like, I'm done, and it's just like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You have to step by it. Why did you start the business? What is your true mission? What are your goals? And you really do have to come back to center and go, okay, like let me just, because our minds do shift from time to time, especially when we see other people who may be a little bit more ahead or getting opportunities that we were expecting to get, and or we thought we were going to launch something and no one comes, or you go to a vending opportunity, nobody buys your book. I mean, there's so many things that you have to go through. So I shared, some of my, failures, if you will, or low points of business. So do you have like either some low points or some tips or even, some things that made you go, wow, like I didn't think of that, or wow, I thought that was going to work and it didn't, that you can share with our audience?
The first thing that I would say is that things take just a long time to really build. And
Uh,
I don't know that I quite understood that when I first began. I think that maybe I had sort of heard some messages that there could be some more instant success and clients running to sign up. And right now, because I'm working B2B, which is the business to business, it's to me, I was able to, it's to me a little bit easier to have women enroll in some of my programs. I have that GLOW, which stands
yeah,
for Growing the Leadership of Women. I have that group. I have done a lot of one-on-one life coaching. I've done wellness coaching, things like that. I feel like it's a little bit easier because I already know people and I have those connections and people understand what I'm doing and want to enroll and be involved. Going out and trying to get organizations with that whole big structure that they're under is time consuming, and trying to have those inroads is very difficult. So the first thing I would say is that you have to go in knowing that you're in for that long game. It is a long game, and there might be some quick wins, but there's a lot of rolling up your sleeves and working hard day in and day out without necessarily having anything in money to show for it until you start to hit that place. So I
mm-hmm.
think that's the first thing, is just the realistic expectations. I think for me, one of the things that I've learned about myself, and I don't consider it a failure, but I consider it something that I've learned I need to really work on, and I am, is some of my personal fears about approaching people, about not networking because I love that. It's like making friends and it's just so wonderful. But the other words that are harder for me, marketing, sales, it's very difficult for me to follow up. There's a part of me that feels like I'm interrupting someone's day, that I'm bothering them, that there might be the fear of rejection embedded there. I don't think that's as strong for me as it
Yeah.
is the fear of being a pest.
Yeah.
And so I have learned that when you own your own business, unless you have enough money, and most people when they start out do not, and unless you have enough money where you can hire that out and have someone do all of your lead generation and prospecting. Usually people who start out as solo entrepreneurs do not. You just have to learn to work through that discomfort, and you have to gather the courage. And so I've learned that I have to have systems in place, I have to have accountability in place, I have to be willing to do the uncomfortable things I don't want to do. Any day I would rather sit down and create content than
Yeah.
I would reach out to someone who has even already shown interest. But for some reason, there's some kind of psychological barrier going on.
Yeah.
So I
I
think we learn a lot about ourselves.
yeah. And so, okay, so I'm going to go back to what you said about, giving yourself this realistic expectation that it takes time to build. Because I was just like you too. I was like, you know what? I'm going to create the LLC. People are going to be coming to my business and I got this, that, and the third, right? And it is nothing like that. It is nothing like that. It is a day by day building blocks, step by step, and when you feel like, 1, 2 years in, you're like, oh, I should already be X, place. And you're not there, it does take time. And that's one of the things that I had to learn. It's like, if you want something to be sustainable, if you want something to be long lasting, you don't want instantaneous, because usually those types of things do not last very long. It's like
Yeah.
winning the lottery, right? So you
Yeah.
spend your money up and you're good. But I just know that I had to change my mindset around that too. And the other thing, you talk about sales and marketing, I think that is something, as for women, if we are not in that space, if we've never been in that industry before, it is a hard thing to keep showing up and following up and not making it seem like we are bothering, or like you said, interrupting and
Yeah.
somebody. So, learning what what works for us. What is the sales system that can work for us and still be effective?
Yes, and still be authentic too, because that was the
Absolutely.
thing, right? There are certain types of sales tactics that I will never use because they are not authentic to me. And I don't
Absolutely.
care if it means that I will one day have less money in my account because I refuse to use these tactics, right? They are not authentic to me and I will not do certain things. I'm not
Yeah.
going for the smoke and mirrors. It's to me, it's a very genuine, relational, value added. If you have this need, I have this and that meets your need. Let's talk. This is great because I know your life or your organization or your leader is going to be better for it. But I'm
Yes.
not here to try to use any kind of smarmy tactic, and I will not. So that's where your authenticity also comes into play. You have to do things in a way that really resonates with who you are
Mhm.
in business, in marketing, in
Mhm.
sales, in every
Mhm.
aspect of it. And I do think that overall people can sense it. I really do.
Yeah. I do too. I do too. And Chevy says it does take time.
Yeah.
And she's got exclamation point because she's a business owner as well.
And it
So
helps to hear people say that. I had a coach recently who said to me, "Oh, you are exactly where you need to be. This is, and then he told me a story about something that he had been working on for 8 months and still hadn't heard a final answer on. And he's been in the business for 20, 30 years.
yeah.
And it is very helpful. And I'm glad Chevy said that. It's business owners need to stick together and support one another. So important.
Yeah. And I also share with, so many people who call and they're just interested in knowing what I'm doing and how I'm doing. And I'm just like, kind of thing. But to have an accountability partner or somebody who you can bounce out ideas off. And my person is Chevy, who's here. We definitely go back and forth in messaging and just making sure that we are accountable to the goals that we have set for the day, or we have an idea, we kind of flesh it out, because sometimes you're by yourself. It's like you're the lone ranger,
Right.
and you could be thinking it's the greatest idea and it's the greatest concept, and it's like, well, we'll put it to the test, ask 5 questions to get down to whatever, if it's going to be, like you said, value added to your ideal client or not, so
Well, and then the other piece of that, that's so important to have that sounding board. And the other piece is to be surrounded by others who are walking through that, having to find that courage day in and day out. That's very inspiring.
yeah.
Uh, there's the Teddy Roosevelt quote, the man or the speech, and then there's that part about the man in the arena.
Oh
And
yeah.
you want to be that man in the arena, even if you come up short again and again and again,
Again
because
and again.
you will. But having that courage, as opposed to those timid souls on the side who are criticizing, you dared greatly. And of course, you need money in the bank, right? But to be surrounded, and I love that you have that accountability partnership, because it's that person. So to me, a lot of what's required in life, in leadership, is courage. I actually, I
Yeah.
can see this is my lion courage necklace. I don't know.
Well, you gotta, yeah, there you go.
Can you see it? It's a
Yeah.
lion, and it's my courage, and it even has like a courage symbol on the back. So now I can just kind of
Ah,
touch it. I got it for my birthday, and I can touch it when I kind of need that little bit of courage. But so much of leadership, and just life is just about building your courage. And that's a muscle that has to be built. It's not like some people are born courageous and others are not. That is a muscle that needs to be strengthened and built. How do we do that? By doing things like starting your own business, by
yeah.
signing up for the 10K when you're not even a runner, by signing up for the Toastmasters, or the thing that's going to stretch you to do something, to apply for the promotion, right?
Yeah,
These
I
things that right
agree.
now I am not that person to do that thing, but I will do what it takes to grow into, to become the kind of person who can do the things I want to do, and that takes courage. So being surrounded by like-minded people who are going to push you, it's it's non-negotiable. You have to be. You absolutely have.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you already, we are very like-minded. I actually quoted his quote, Theodore
Mhm.
Roosevelt's quote, in my retirement speech,
Mm.
because I was like, y'all over here criticizing and on the sidelines, and I'm out here marred, and I feel like I went through battle, and yeah, y'all are just, and so I read that and I have it on my retirement pamphlet, like you get your handout or whatnot. So
Oh, I love that.
that's number one. Number two, are you a Leo?
I am.
Okay, y'all, listen.
Gosh,
Listen
watch
here,
out.
y'all. Like, so when is your birthday?
August 10th.
Well, happy belated. Mine was on August 18th.
Oh, wow.
So I already knew, like when you showed me your necklace and the lion, I was like, yes, y'all, the Leos are in the house. Hear
Oh,
us
yeah.
roar. Okay.
Watch out.
But we do have to have courage and we have to build
Yeah.
it, because starting something, doing something new, getting out there on your own, it could be applied to anything. Really requires you to like step up in to this space where you've never been before and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So and you never know what it's going to do. And so Chevy here has made a comment. Yes, we do need to stick together, because when things are not happening, when we do the work, we get frustrated and self-doubt starts to creep in.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then
a lot of times that
Moses.
self-doubt is creeping in because we're being stirred, I think, to something more. And anytime
Mm,
we're about to take something next level, watch out, because there's going to be a battle, right? There's going to be a battle. And so I think sometimes when that self-doubt creeps in, instead of wishing we didn't have that, can we
yeah.
say, oh, here's some self-doubt. Oh, what's next? What am I about to do? That's pretty, right? Because I do think that there's that battle that occurs when we are in the middle of doing. And I Brene Brown, Daring Greatly, and she has that Teddy Roosevelt. It was just sitting here on my desk.
Yeah.
The Teddy Roosevelt quote is here. This is a great book for people if they Daring Greatly, if they want to read more about that. But it is that that there are going to be the self-doubts. There's going
Yeah.
to be the detractors. There are going to be those moments of panic sometimes even, but it's staying in that arena. I love that you used that in your retirement speech.
Oh, yeah.
Love that.
You know what? At the end, I mean, literally, I took a little glimpse, just a little snapshot of my career,
Yeah.
and every single adversity, struggle, obstacle, whatever came my way, I was able to break through that. And not too many times were people coming to my rescue. You know what I mean? Like, people just wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah.
and and it was like, wow, you know, when you're stepping out into new territory, or someone like me who looks like me has never gone through the path that I went through, it's easy for people to discount you
Mm,
and to say that you're not going to do it. You can't make it. You can't be, and sometimes you even say that to yourself.
yeah.
And I just realized that, his quote spoke, it resonated with me so much. I was like, oh, I'm using this.
Yeah.
I'm using this. But instead of saying man, I was like, woman.
Exactly. And the thing too is that, let's say you set a certain goal and then you have to shift because it just doesn't seem like the way you're headed with your business is really the right direction. So you pivot, whatever it may be. That's all okay too, because the thing is, it's just about the journey too. And again, with business,
Mhm.
if we're talking about business and having your own business, obviously you need the money. But
Yeah.
there is this part of whatever someone wants to do that requires courage, that the end goal isn't the only thing. There's this journey, there's this becoming, there's this thing that happens to you along the way, there's the people you meet along the way, there's this
Mhm.
whole transformation of your life that occurs as you are going for it. And if you don't end up at that exact goal, it's like the Olympians who didn't win the gold medal. Was it all for nothing? Absolutely not. They still went to the Olympics, right?
They sure did.
And so it's not, sometimes I think we are an all or nothing society.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of times where instead of the we have to say, and I didn't do this, and I'm going to pivot and do this, or I didn't quite make it this far, and so I'm going to train harder and do it next time. Or but it's that journey, that
Mhm.
of the becoming. And that, I think, is so important, and guaranteed you're still going to touch lives along the way. If you're trying to put value out there and do something that's really meeting a need, you're going to touch lives.
Yeah.
And to me, that's very, very worth it.
Yeah, I agree because again, I think for both of us, the word that comes to mind and it's always on top of my mind is impact. What is
Yeah.
the impact that I can create, the positive impacts that I can create and make a difference in this world?
Yes.
Um, because at the end of the day, when we all look at it, we're all not going to be here living on this earth forever. That's just the way this works. Okay, this
Yep.
is the normal life cycle. We will have an expiration date, and
Yeah.
then what is it that we're going to look back on and say,
Mhm.
hmm, you know, what did I accomplish, and for me, it's not all the awards, it's not all the ranks, it's not all the promotions and the job titles that I had when it was in military service. It's really about what are people going to say about me.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is so important. What is my son going to say about me?
Mhm.
What is he saying about me right now?
Yeah.
Because I am his example. Me and his dad are we are his examples. My
Mhm.
husband and I, put a lot of effort into making sure that he grows up to be a contributing and kind and nurturing persons in this world. And so, we and business, and I know that some people may not agree with this, but when you're in business, you got to realize that you're creating a movement, if you will. Now, if you're selling products and services and all that other stuff, but when you're looking at it, people buy from you because they want to buy from you. Not
Mhm.
because the product is high end or anything like that, if you will, but they know what to expect from the person. And so at the end of our lifetime, if you will, it's a legacy. And so my final question to you, Allison, because we are way past well, not way past, we're about 5 minutes past the hour, is what will your legacy be? Like, what do you want people to say about you at your 80th birthday party?
And I think it is just that I did live to try to make a difference. I we're not just here to take up space. We're not just here to breathe in the air and have the cars and the fancy house and leave, or at least I don't believe we are. I do believe we're here to make a difference. So I would just want people to say that I really did live my life for the greater good, to make a difference. And for me, I think it, depending on how people would know me, it would be different things.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think I made a difference in some elephants' lives because I'm involved with elephant conservation, and the 80-year-old version of me. Actually, I hope it's not 80 when we're doing this. I hope it's like 100 when we're doing the eulogy or whatever.
She's like, give me my 20. I need the extra
20 more
20.
years, because when I'm 80, I plan on being, very involved, hands-on, over in Africa doing my elephant conservation work. So I need some more time for that. Uh,
Wow, yes.
but my children, that mom really cared. She sacrificed so much. She had a bigger mission. She wasn't just concerned with herself. I mean, at the end of the day, we're here for each other. We're here for this planet, and we're not just here to take up space. And I don't think that anyone really believes that they are. I think we all have that hole inside of us that wants to give. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Just that she cared and she tried to make a difference. And you hope that by the way you show up and the things you do, even though you don't always get it right, you hope that you're making a difference and making this world a little bit better, people's lives a little bit better, your community a little bit better, everyone you come into contact with, that you just can make their life a little bit better.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love that you also wrote a book. So that's
Oh
another
yeah.
thing we have in common. So your book is a legacy.
Mm.
It's one of those legacy holders because
That's a good.
writing something out, right, in your words, in the way that you have experienced it. So can you share with the audience a little bit about your book?
And I
Um,
will, thank you. And at the very end of my book, on the last page, I quote Dr. Jane Goodall. She's one of my heroes. All the work she's done with chimpanzees. She's a conservationist, philanthropist, peacemaker. And I say at the end of the book, it's called Character Leadership. And it's written partly to HR leaders in infusing character into the leadership in the organizations to attract, retain, and energize the best employees. But there's tons in here that's also for someone who is not in an organization, about authenticity and awareness, acceptance, etc., the models that are in here. So, but I put her quote in at the end, and she said, "We have the choice to use the gift of our life to make the world a better place, or not to bother. And I say,
Mm.
together, let's bother. I think to me, it's all about, I talk in here about some models I won't go into. We're at the end here, but just about being, I call it being a vessel, where you can be that vessel of change for others in the world. And it's all about leaving that legacy, and while you have this time on earth, being that vessel through which positive impact can flow for others. And think about the ripple effect of that. When, you know, your son, you talked about that you're trying to raise him to be a certain way. Now how is he going to go out into the world, and what's he going to teach his child or children? So the little parts that we can do, that's all we can do, right? But I think that
Yeah,
we have that responsibility. So thank you for letting me share about that.
absolutely. Listen, y'all, if you weren't here for this whole show, I mean, you're going to have to go back and listen to this because this was so insightful. It was rich. There was a lot of introspection going on. There was a lot of information being shared, very much value added. So I just want to first acknowledge our guests that were here with us live. So we had Mosaic Sparks, Chevy, that were both here with us this evening. And so if you come back and you're listening, please put in hashtag replay so that we know that you came back, and let us know how you felt about this conversation. If you have any takeaways, or if you have any other perspectives that you would like to share with us. And y'all, this was just an amazing night because we got through the technical difficulties without a problem. Okay, all the things.
Phew.
Yeah,
Did you tell them my laptop died 50
you
minutes
know, I
before
did
the
not.
show?
Y'all, her laptop died like I don't know how many hours prior, but
50 minutes.
50 minutes prior to us being on the show, and she was troubleshooting, she was doing all the things in the background, and it at first we didn't know, and of course, you know what,
Just
we were great, we had
roll with
it,
it.
we rolled with it. And I think it is just an absolute pleasure to have you here to discuss these important um, ideals, if you will, about leadership, wellness, mindset, business. So thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you again, Allison, for being a guest on the Slate to Success talk show. And next week, on Sunday, of course, we're here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have yet another guest for us to have a conversation with. So keep on slaying, everybody, until you can't slay no more. And we will talk to you all and see each other soon. Bye bye.
Bye, and thank you, Rochelle.
You're welcome. Absolutely.